blockchain's future, yeah, we stacking up the blocks while they sleeping on the tech. We be breaking all the locks. Started from the vision, now we running with precision. Oracle's automation, man, we changing the division. Multi-VM flex, ain't no stopping.
Hey John, let's show good energy for this one, okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna start out with.
Yeah, we climbing through the ranks. Supply lock tight, ain't no dumping in the banks. Taking L1 higher, ecosystem fire while the others getting wrecked. Super only getting flyer.
Right.
How's it going?
Right. Yeah, I mean, John, I know that, some of us have lack of sleep, so I'm like, yo, let's go. So like, let's wake up a little bit, let's go.
Yeah, we have to be energized. This is awesome. So this is our fourth masterclass or webinar, and this one's exciting. It's about containers. So we went through. Let's list off the kind of the webinars, the masterclasses that we've had. AutoFi was the first one, talking about the future of DeFi, automation, AI on Supra. Second was how AutoFi can bring different revenue models onto Supra. The third was smart NFTs, and today is very special. We're going to be talking about containers. And I remember when I remember when you first talked about the concept of containers, and it didn't kick in right away. But at one point, when we got the whole research team excited about it, and that we could prove that we could build a model around it, then I started getting overly excited. But I realized, okay, it's going to take a little bit of time to build out. So I remember at one point, just always like at events and on different podcasts, I would just be like, oh, I'm the most excited about containers. But now they're we're headed to actually launching them in Q4. So this is great, perfect timing. We're going to be talking about different types of containers, different use cases. And we're going to be talking about what are containers for those of you that are new, and why are they such a big deal. So really excited about today. Yeah, we have some high energy.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff. I mean, it's so many things. Once you see it, it's like so obvious. And the issue with containers, or rather with like L2s and app chains, are that you break composability, you break liquidity, shared liquidity, right? And you have more latency across these different ecosystems, and sometimes bridging back is a challenge, etc. So just one thing, I am having a green juice. So if you're wondering what this is, it is a mixture of kale, celery, and lemon, and and ginger, by the way, highly recommended. Okay, but let's talk about Supra also. So Supra, just for folks that are new here, we're vertically integrated layer one, smart contract platform, super fast consensus. We're going to be talking about speed a lot today, by the way. Native built-in oracles, native built-in cross-chain communication, going live to Ethereum in 4 or 5 days here, right? Approximately, give or take a couple of days, who knows, right? As well as automation, decentralized if this or that. No one has done this before. We're the first. And to the cherry on top, as John and I'd like to say, is the containers. Because what are containers? They basically allow developers, as we roll this out, to have their own ecosystem, their own rules, their own token, their own gas fees, their own governance on the layer one itself. We call it your own DappSpace on the layer one, your own execution environment, so to speak, right? So to kind of jump in here, let's continue with the conversations around containers. I mean, John, we were talking about business models earlier. This is a major one. What are your thoughts on business models for ecosystem developers wanting to do in their own containers?
So I think it's becoming a popular idea about, of course, revenue, like generating revenue for a protocol or DeFi protocol or an app is obvious for a lot of developers. You don't want to just create a copy paste DEX on from this ecosystem and bring it to Supra or bring it to that ecosystem. You want to create and you want to build protocols and apps that have a good revenue model. So that's number one. But also you want to be able to think about, well, how do I build a revenue model on top of a layer one in a very specific way without actually deploying your own chain or your own L2. And so we were talking earlier about this idea of like a prediction market, for example, that what if they launched a container, they had their own token, they could actually set their own rules where maybe some of the transaction fee, they could actually charge a small surplus. So imagine in the back end, Supra, the cost of transactions are very low, sub pennies. But this new container, let's just say a prediction market wants to basically charge a small surplus on top of that for every transaction fee. They could even potentially even charge $1 per interaction in their ecosystem, because people are using it, they're finding value and betting and kind of predicting this event will happen, for example. So they might be actually paying $1 per transaction. And that's an interesting revenue model on the back end for an application like a prediction market, for example. So it's really important. And I think it's more and more important. We're seeing that applications in our ecosystem want to find different ways of being sustainable and, of course, making money. And if we can be able to have the best business model innovation on Supra, we can attract so many more developers, but also really attract those entrepreneurs that are looking to make profitable businesses. And that in the end, Supra will be successful if we have ecosystem projects that are building profitable businesses, number one, or Supra is building out our own profitable businesses. I think either one. So you need to have these innovative business models like containers.
Yeah, so imagine, right, on Supra, a transaction, let's just call it 1/10 of a penny, right? And then in John's example, the container owner of the ecosystem says, for this, it costs $1. That's 1,000x markup. That's 1,000x margin. You know what I mean? It's very rare to have that type of thing in the world right now, and just in general. So it's a powerful thing, right? Where the dApp can own the DappSpace, they can have 1,000 times, not 1,000%, 1,000 times margins, right? So we're really excited about this. Once again, the nice thing about ecosystems that are going to be launching containers on Supra is that they'll also inherit our infrastructure stack. They'll have access to cross-chain communication, automation, Oracle price fees, on-chain randomness, right? And you can just build so much more with that. Every blockchain wants all of those things. Every blockchain needs oracles. Every blockchain needs on-chain randomness. Every blockchain needs to bridge into other ecosystems, right? Every blockchain, many of them don't realize it, but they're going to want automation, right? And create these, what we call super dApps. So yeah, I mean, we're really excited about this. It's all about ultimately it's for the dApp entrepreneurs. They need to become profitable. We need to create these tools where they can generate these revenue models and capture that value and perhaps redistribute it to their ecosystem and such. But we need to, basically what our whole modus operandi is to focus on developers and help them capture value in a way that's not extractive, right? So, we have previously talked about things like MEV prevention, like toxic MEV prevention, and also internalizing the good MEV, arbitrage, liquidations, other things. Transaction fees, where you could set your own gas fees and such with, containers, it's a very powerful business model as well. So most folks don't really focus on business model innovation, but that is a very powerful thing to do, and we have kept our eye on that for quite some time. But shall we jump into containers? We have a video. Let's play that again, and from there we can take it from there and talk about some other things. A new type of container that doesn't exist yet, but we never really shared with the world too much information on just yet. That is very appropriate to have extreme performance, very low latency, very fast. You just can't execute like a Web 2 speed on a decentralized network, right? It's just impossible. But what if you could, right? So this is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Let's go ahead and play the video about containers, and then we'll jump into the other new ideas we have.
Let's do it.
Get ready to build with freedom on Supra Containers with dedicated customizable DappSpace on Supra Layer 1. Builders have been moving to Layer 2s and app chains to avoid the congestion of public shared networks, to build protocols with their own token economy, to create their own custom ecosystem with multiple dApps. But over time, we've seen how these Layer 2s and app chains suffer from fractured composability, unable to atomically interact with their own ecosystems. It also fragments liquidity across multiple smaller layers, becoming dependent on risky bridges. High infrastructure costs of setting up your own chain, onboarding validators, getting your own bridge and Oracle integrations. This is where Supra Containers change the app chain game for good. Supra Containers give you dedicated DappSpace directly on Supra Layer 1, where you can create your own ecosystem. Get complete control over your governance, rules, and tokenomics. You can even design your own app chain economy with local fee markets. Supra Containers are composable with other containers and dApps across Supra Layer 1. Easily interact with other smart contracts across the wider Supra ecosystem. That means atomic transactions with other dApps and containers, and you also benefit from shared liquidity across the ecosystem. Just like L2s, you can also let other dApps build on your Supra container. It's like your ecosystem, and you can use custom governance control and tokens, with incentives to attract more builders. For example, Supra Containers built for gaming can attract more games to join in their container or ecosystem. And as you build your ecosystem, the container helps you capture more value. You can use your own token for fees, set custom fee amounts, or just go gasless. You even get full governance control. You set the rules and the policies however you like. And even if you set a low flat fee for your users, this DappSpace is inexpensive for you, creating a significant margin on every transaction. Containers are secured by Supra's own Layer 1 validator nodes with dedicated processing power from Supra, enabled by the Moonshot protocol's 500,000 TPS with sub-second consensus latency and Supra's 3-tier parallel execution strategy. Of course, you get access to Supra's vertically integrated services too, all without any added cost or effort. Supra Containers give you more value capture than building your own app chain at a fraction of the cost. They're also creating a scalable, sustainable open market for DappSpace running on a system that allows free market pricing. That's how containers give you the freedom to build, experiment, or create your own world. Go big at your own pace, or scale back whenever you need to. With Supra's powerful infrastructure already in place, you can focus on what you love, building your application. Supra Containers, dedicated, customizable DappSpace on Supra L1.
All
That's an
right.
amazing video.
Yeah, I love that one.
Our creative team do very well.
Yeah, that's
Breaking
pretty
down
good.
kind of complex ideas in the beginning and making them digestible. I think our team does pretty good at that.
Yeah. These are revolutionary ideas. They don't exist elsewhere. These are first principles based thinking that has led to this. And it just makes sense. And by the way, you couldn't do this unless you scaled the layer 1 first, right? So this idea didn't even occur to folks that have slower blockchains or just can't handle the performance because they just kind of resulted into let's just do layer 2s, etc. Now there are some merits to that and such, but by and large, we think it is better to keep the ecosystem on the same infrastructure as much as possible. Now there are some caveats to that. We'll be talking about that a little bit today. But let me go ahead and jump into this here to share a bit more about the presentation on Supra Containers. Let me know if y'all can see my screen. And since I can't see you, John, if you want to interrupt.
Get ready to build with...
Whoops. Get ready to build.
Let's watch the video.
Let's do it again. Let's watch it one more time. Replay it. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, but John, since I can't see you right now, just interrupt me if you want to say anything. No problem.
Sure.
All right, let's do this. So app chains do give builders more freedom to kind of do what they want to do. However, it comes with the cost of fragmented composability and broken liquidity, right? And also you don't have shared security either, by the way, right? You have a different chain here, different chain there, different chain there. And because the chain itself has to have its own token economics, you have to support nodes, etc. There's actually less value capture for the application itself. And it's ultimately, it's a solution. And there are definitely use cases for it. But at the same time, there are some major drawbacks. Now, with containers, developers can build their own ecosystem. You can have your own token. You can set your own gas fees and pricing. You can have your own governance. You can say this container is a regulated DeFi container and cannot compose with DeFi unregulated KYC DeFi, for example, or this is a GameFi container. We're only letting in and composing with other specific types of games, right? And basically, the developer has the ecosystem. Those that are launching a container have the governance control to set these rules. So you have a lot of flexibility here. Moreover, you have access immediately to our, as I mentioned before, is our full vertical stack. If you're going to launch your own app chain, you have to integrate with an Oracle, a bridge, automation network, on-chain randomness service, all these things that you might not be able to afford because these are very expensive integrations. Many of these other folks are going to be charging you $1 million, right? That's not really, it's really tough to do this, to launch it without venture backing. With containers though, we think you could launch on Supra Layer 1 for like maybe, I don't know, $1,000 to $10,000 worth of Supra, just to get the ball rolling. And then of course, as you consume execution capacity and space on the blockchain, of course you're paying for that as well, but it's very, you can start so small, and then as you grow, you pay more. It's almost like elastic cloud compute, right? So it's a similar concept, but for block space or DappSpace, as we call it.
And I think a lot of these L2s that launched that were apps or like app specific chains, they have to all of a sudden focus on building an L2 instead of their main business, which is, the application first, what they should be focusing on, improving and getting product market fit or getting customers, et cetera. They would spend a lot of time on, well, now I have to find all this infrastructure to maintain an L2. And it becomes like a full-time job and it distracts away from the application layer.
That's right. Application developers are not necessarily infrastructure developers, right? It's not their forte. So it adds a lot of complexity and cost to it. Whereas they could just focus on their product being excellent at what they do, right? So Supra is really focused on the infrastructure layer to make sure that folks that are these creative genius developers with great ideas don't have to worry about the underlying technology. It just works and you get it all there built in, right? So that's the whole point of this. So developers can set their own governance. That could be any type of governance you want to have. It could be liquid democracy. It could be any type of voting process. It could be token weighted. It could be whatever you want. You can create your own custom token economy. It means you can have your own token. You can set your own gas fees. You can set your own rules. For example, a transaction on Supra might cost 1/10 of a penny, but maybe it's like the movement or minting of an NFT, and you say, hey, in my container, we're charging $5, right? That's a 5,000x margin, right? So that would be huge. So there are real business models that can be built here because maybe there's a very specific use case that you can only get through your application. Maybe it's a game or whatever it is, and you can, as a result, charge what you want, whatever makes sense to you. You can expand your ecosystem, meaning you can launch with your suite of applications and let others join in. Maybe it becomes kind of like a community of dApps and developers to create your own container. The nice thing about this is we have composability across smart contracts as well as shared security and shared liquidity because they exist on Supra Layer 1 itself. So you can say, hey, we compose with these applications and containers. We don't compose with these others. You can set your own rules through governance. And moreover, you don't have to bootstrap a node operator set. You don't have to worry about all those expenses related to it. You don't have to, these are real like token economic concerns that you will have to deal with if you try to launch your own chain, right? And many app chains have not made it as a result. Everyone assumes that, oh, I'm an app chain, therefore I'm a layer 1, therefore I have a huge premium. It doesn't always work that way, right? So the idea is deploying on a container directly on Supra Layer 1 is you can just focus on your application, focus on go-to-market, focus on marketing, user adoption. The costs are very low to get started. Okay, so you can basically get the best of Layer 2s without the drawbacks. So you have atomic composability, meaning smart contracts can compose with each other across containers. Of course, anything in your container you can. App chains is you have one app chain and a different app chain, or a Layer 2. They don't compose with each other, right? Folks are working towards that, but their solutions just don't work. You have to have a multi-phase commit process. You add a lot of complexity, start to juggle all these different tokens. It's very confusing. You have to, security, latency, these are all concerns with this. Once again, when you have different app chains or Layer 2s, the liquidity is here, the liquidity is there, they're not together, right? So it's harder for value to move across different communities. Network setups, bootstrapping, even if it's your own like L2 sequencer or entire app chain of decentralized node operators, it's harder than it looks to do it properly, right? It's expensive and complex. The infrastructure, what we offer that others don't, you can't just get it out of the box an app chain that has native Oracle built into it, cross-chain communication, automation, on-chain randomness. You don't get that. You have to integrate, pay a couple $100,000 here, a couple $100,000 there, et cetera. It adds up very quickly. Whereas in Supra, we have these native services which developers can just tap into immediately. So we truly believe that there's just hands down, this is a better way to do it. Why haven't people done this before? It's because they didn't scale the layer one. And that was among our first priorities. So Supra Containers, you can have your own custom token economy. You can set your own rules, governance rules. You have composability between different ecosystems. You have shared security and shared liquidity across the layer one. You have extreme access to extreme throughput. Supra has the ability to scale to a lot of capacity as needed. And then also access to vertically integrated services, Oracle, cross-chain communication, automation, on-chain randomness, et cetera. So you have all the benefits of like an app chain, but also you have like even more with containers, go to markets faster, cheaper to deploy. You focus on your product. Product developers, app developers should be focusing on their app and dApp, not necessarily on the infrastructure. There's a lot of complexity required to actually have a decentralized set of nodes and to run the infrastructure itself. Whereas your particular insight and genius is going to be on that particular use case and niche, right? That you have insight into. You don't really need to learn about networking, decentralized, distributed compute protocols, et cetera. You get this all out of the box with Supra Containers. Now, that said, there are some use cases where you need extreme performance. I mean, Supra is already fast, right? And as I mentioned a couple of days ago, in the kind of community call we had, we haven't even taken off all the safety rails and all the training wheels in our algorithms. We have some artificial delays, et cetera, just to focus on stability. But our algorithms are designed to work at network speed. What does that mean? It means as fast as the internet is communicating, that's as fast as the consensus should be running, which is faster than an artificial delay. This is a large reason why Solana has been pivoting away from proof of history, because that 400 millisecond block time is actually an artificial delay, right? The proof of history algorithm introduced this notion of 400 millisecond slots, and their Alpenglow is way closer to what Moonshot is already doing, and with our innovation with Hydrangea, we are basically pushing the limits, and we have some early data that we'll be talking about that today. Now, there is a new concept, brand new concept that we didn't originally think of, called chain containers, Supra chain containers. These are actually chains. These are like micro chains, almost like a miniature blockchain that can run in a centralized setting. Whoa, you said the C word, Josh. How could you say that, right? Well, if you want to have extreme speed, right? Remember, no project, none of them can go below, let's call it 200 milliseconds. If you actually have decentralization, because the limitations of speed of light. You send a message through the internet, fiber optics, communicating from one node to another in a decentralized network, you inevitably introduce, let's call it minimum 80 to 133 milliseconds in data dissemination latency, right? Then consensus algorithms require at least 2 rounds of communication, typically 3 to 7, right? So as Moonshot's kind of innovation is that we had pushed down to 3 rounds of communication. Other protocols were 5 to 7 rounds of communication. Moonshot kind of got this recognition because, well, we figured out we could do this in 3 steps. With Hydrangea, we can do it in 2 steps, right? And while still maintaining the BFT Byzantine fault tolerant qualities, for Byzantine resistance and tolerance to crash nodes, at the beyond actually 33%. That's kind of the interesting kind of idea there. So very high performing while still being secure. So what is this super chain container concept though? Well, let me kind of jump into it. So you have in red here the super layer 1 itself. Maybe it's 100 nodes, 300 nodes. We plan to scale beyond that over time as we grow. We know that we can scale to over 300 nodes. We know that we could scale it to much more if we need to, right? But there's a lot of execution capacity the way we do things with even 100 nodes up to 300 nodes. So we have a pathway forward to ultra scale, if we need to. But where we're at today, we don't need to have 10 billion transactions per second, right? We don't need that right now. But what is a super chain container? Well, it's like a micro chain. It's like a parallel network to Supra. These nodes could be, 5 to 10 nodes only. Very small network, right? This is, we kind of woke up after Hyperliquid launched. They and us were the only chains that have fully vertically integrated. Layer 1 with Oracle, with Bridge, right? We have automation, on-chain randomness. We were trying to be more of a generalized kind of infrastructure that we know that services almost every single use case, whereas they were application specific. They launched with 4 nodes. That was like unheard of, right? And it is still a very vulnerable issue. And they were down yesterday a little bit, and it happens, I guess. That's the thing. When you have less nodes, you do have the risk of crash nodes or liveness failures. They're called liveness. It's not a safety failure. That'd be the worst. That's a double spend. But liveness is offline, and of course, since I believe they're in the same data center, et cetera, it was easy for them to reboot and get going again. But still, this type of thinking was unacceptable in the past. But we're seeing that actually the market seems to think it's appropriate. They want to have speed, right? We just cannot have latency under, say, like I mentioned, 200 milliseconds. If you're a layer 1 that's actually decentralized, the layer 1 has to be ultra secure and decentralized. But what about all those use cases like a perp dex or a game or whatever it might be, where you need to have Web 2 speed? This is kind of the idea behind super chain containers. All right, so let's kind of dive into this. What does this mean? So these kind of little databases represent smart contracts. The way this works is the super chain container is basically a replica of Supra's technology in a very small 5 to 7 node system. They execute on the super chain container first, and then that data is posted to Supra's layer 1. The same smart contracts exist on both. So you can actually run ahead of everything else, and almost optimistically in the future, you can execute at centralized speeds, right? And I'm going to be showing some data that's remarkable, running our algorithms on a kind of super chain container, which is allowed to be co-located together, in the same database or region, data center or region. That's okay, actually. So this is a very interesting thing, but how does this possibly work? Well, in a nutshell, it's the following. We have the smart contracts deployed on Super Layer 1. We also have them on the super chain container. Think of it like a micro chain, right? The same smart contracts, same logic executes here first, and then is posted on Super Layer 1 to be re-executed, maintaining Super Layer 1 security. So Super Layer 1 executes everything again, just maybe a second or two later. But in the meantime, you can have extreme performance. We're talking about less than 50 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds. It depends on what you're trying to do here, but the data is suggesting that it's very powerful. So the interesting thing about this, how do you keep this secure? The original assets always actually stay on Supra. So it's always actually on Supra. It executes on this thing, and then we re-execute on Supra to follow the execution of the microchain. But the real assets never move anywhere else. They actually stay on Supra. The actual assets, the ones that actually matter. What we do is we issue mirrored assets on this microchain. So they can exist in the future almost a little bit, do all this activity at Web 2 speeds, and that activity is cryptographically signed and mirrored and executed on Super Layer 1, where the actual real assets are doing the same execution movement, et cetera, like a second later, right? So this is not like data availability, and then maybe someone checks it for a problem later, and then you have 12 hours to 7 days for, or 12 minutes to 7 days for finality. We're talking about you can execute this on the Supra chain container, micro chain concept at Web 2 speeds, post that data Supra, we re-execute the same exact transactions, doing the same verification validation again, where the real assets exist on Super Layer 1, maintaining Super Layer 1 security. No one's done this before because it just didn't occur to anyone, because you had to have a lot of execution capacity on layer ones. And now I also never thought that, you would need to have like less than 200 millisecond block times. I thought that should be sufficient. But it seems that there is a whole another world where actually a whole design space can open up if you can do like 50 millisecond, 20 millisecond block times. 20 millisecond block times is 50 blocks per second. Isn't that crazy? It's basically Web 2 kind of thing. Extreme throughput. I never even imagined this a year ago that this would be something that people would want. I didn't realize that this is the level of user experience that people want. I did know people wanted cheap fees, high throughput, low latency. I didn't know that they wanted this extreme level of low latency. Okay, of course, security is always number one, and this is the only way that we think that you can do this. Web 2 speeds, basically Web 2 application with re-execution on layer one a couple seconds later for full finality. You can, however, for 99.99999% of the time, just work on this super chain, micro-chain kind of concept and be confident that it's going to finalize a couple seconds later. If you're ultra paranoid, sure, wait a couple seconds to make sure that super layer one executes, but it's certainly strictly better than what layer twos and app chains are doing today. Okay, so you process the transactions in microchain ultra fast, and then ultimately we are posting these blocks of this microchain, the super chain container, to super layer one. Same smart contracts exist on both to be re-executed on the layer one for final settlement a couple seconds later. The blocks on the microchain are posted to super layer one as batches. Batches are what our super layer one consists of, batches of transactions. So our blocks on super layer one are filled with batches. The batches themselves can have thousands of transactions. This is part of how we have this tremendous scale and capacity.
So these mirror assets kind of, for conceptually, people might think they're like wrapped assets, but actually the term mirrored assets is interesting because they're not only mirrored assets, but we're mirroring the execution from the microchain to the super layer one.
That's right. Yeah, so it all happens first in microchain at Web 2 speeds, and then the same instructions, the same payload is re-executed on super layer one moments later, right? The actual real asset, the actual Supra, other assets, from Supra, whether that's, stablecoins or whatever, they actually always stay on the super layer one, right? But what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to be organized and ordered, they can be executed first on the microchain, giving you a Web 2 experience, but then you have the Web 3 security guarantee shortly thereafter, like seconds later. This is what we're moving towards. So you basically get your cake and eat it too. You get that Web 2 experience super fast, and I'm going to show you data in a second. But then you maintain the Web 3 decentralized ethos and security guarantees. So I'm really excited about this because no one's done this before. Moreover, like the super chain containers, you'll get access to our Oracle data, right? The Oracle data is produced from the super layer one, and we can publish it to the microchain every 600, 900 milliseconds also, right? And but you can also have our stack, meaning automation, cross-chain communication, on-chain randomness in the microchain as well. Okay, so super chain containers, it's the first ever to do this model where you do the re-execution. We're the first ever to think of this, right? So you have layer one security with Web 2 speeds, right? This is going to be ideal for decentralized exchanges like perpdexes, right? Gaming and other ultra fast use cases, maybe is social networks, maybe it's who knows what it is, right? But if you need to have Web 2 experience, this is the only way to physically do this. Now we can also, basically what we do is we combine scalability with robust security. We have this extreme performance, Web 2 speeds, fast, high frequency trading type of experience, but with robust Web 3 security, because the actual settlement, the actual real assets are re-executed on super layer one following the pre-execution of the microchain, so to speak. All right, so we ran Hydrangea, the latest algorithm from Supra for consensus algorithm from Supra, on our super chain container, right? On a 10 node network, same region. And this is the data. Let me kind of walk you through this. So block size, is very natural. As a block size, as a block, the number of transactions in the block increase, the latency, the time it takes to finality, it increases. There's no way around that, right? The payload gets larger. It takes longer for the payload to be distributed to the network. But still, look at the latency. These are not seconds. These are milliseconds, right? So we're talking about, like, when I say blocks per second, I'm talking about like 100 blocks per second, 50 to 100 blocks per second type of range per second. This is crazy, 50 to 100 blocks per second, right? So the latency and the payload, right? These are, we actually put real transactional data into this to measure this in apples to apples. This is not empty blocks. As the block size goes up, as the number of transactions are included, the time it takes for finality increases, or for consensus increases, right? However, this is still ultra fast. We're talking about 30 millisecond block times, right? And so let's kind of go through this data in a different way to visualize it. So as your block size increases, latency also increases. This is going to be the same for every single system in the world, right? Blocks per second. This is interesting. This is like you're like saying, hey, there's 10 millisecond block times here. How do you have 140 blocks per second? Shouldn't it be only 100? We can, with the way the Hydrangia consensus works, once we have a certificate that a block has been proposed and certified, basically, we can propose the next one, even before full finality. Hydrangia is basically taking moonshots to the maximum degree. In fact, moonshot consensus is kind of the fallback for Hydrangia, right? Just in case we kind of just go back to our regular moonshot. So there's a lot of parallels there. Now, application-specific super chain containers is for a specific kind of set of applications. You know, like Super Layer 1, right, is meant to support thousands of applications, right? So the TPS has to handle a lot. But if you just have your own container for your specific application, you know, we think that 4,000 transactions per second is enough, right? So in this case, if you wanted to kind of, we think that the sweet spot is going to be around here, where you're able to produce like 45 blocks per second. 45 per second, that's crazy. And then the TPS ultimately is around, you know, 4,000. That's probably more than enough for your single application. Many use cases, you know, that are world scale don't even need this type of throughput. So there will always be some tension between decentralization, latency, and throughput, right? There's just no way around that. We think that this is the sweet spot. We probably are going to be targeting around this area for the first set of applications that we will build, but also you folks can eventually build, right? We're really excited about that as well. There is a drawback. I just want to be very clear, because once we go into this world, right, microchain, we do break composability with everything else on the Super Layer 1, but that's fine. Many applications just need to be composing with 3 or 4 other dApps, and that does the whole thing, right? So there are use cases, like in a use case, it's basically like Hyperliquid, a perpdex, that people want extreme low latency, but also you want to have resilience, and you want to have, everyone's always going to want to have Layer 1 security, right? So there is a trade-off here, which is you don't compose with every single thing on the Super Layer 1 in this model. You have your own kind of enclosed, encapsulated container environment, right? It's the only way we can make this work. Nonetheless, you know, this is still really remarkable, meaning these could be different smart contracts, or they can be separate applications that are saying, hey, we're going to just have our own isolated kind of app chain experience, but still have Super Layer 1 security, and have more. These microchains are going to be like, I don't know, 10 to 20 times faster than any single app chain will ever do, right? So we're Web 2 speeds with Layer 1 security. So there is, I just want to have that little caveat that it was a little bit like, oh, okay, well, is it worth it to have this trade-off of breaking composability for these types of speeds? I mean, we're talking about 10 millisecond blocks, right? Of course, the payloads are smaller, so we can have extreme low latency, 100 blocks per second range, 140 blocks per second, right? But the truth is 10 milliseconds or 30 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds, the human can't even feel the difference. The human experience cannot feel the difference, right? Because, even at 50 millisecond block times, that's still 20 blocks per second. One Mississippi, in that area that I just counted, that was 20 blocks, right? So imagine how fast 100 blocks per second is, right? And I don't think there's really that many use cases that need this, but really the truth is still this is about data and showing what Hydrangia can do in a super chain container environment. It's extreme. No one can really beat this, right? So this is very exciting, because remember, things finalized, kind of pre-execute on this superchain container and are posted to super layer 1 a second or two later. The goal is that has full finality, right? Layer 1 security, full finality. So if the superchain container, somehow the operators are trying to cheat or equivocate or fork it, layer 1 will capture it and pause the activity. It won't build upon that forked branched blockchain that superchain container validators had created. It'll only proceed across, it maintains that layer 1 security, only proceeds across the branch of the chain that makes sense and that is correct and correctly cryptographically secure. All right, ta-da! Well, once again, the only chains and projects that really thought deeply about vertical integration is Hyperliquid and Supra. And community has asked us, why aren't you guys doing a perp dex, right? And we talk about vertical integration, and we vertically integrate layer 1, smart contracts, Oracle, bridge, automation, on-chain randomness. We also vertically integrate, proof of efficient liquidity protocol, POEL, cross-chain dynamic function market maker on the layer 1. Now, it didn't occur to us to focus on a perp dex in particular, and also, after Hyperliquid went to market, with their performance, when kudos to them. Of course, we focus more on like a system that can handle much more decentralization, and that was a major kind of ethos of ours, is actually to build a system that's global scale that has layer 1 security. Nonetheless, they have proven that this is a product people love, right? So we're introducing Superliquid today. This will be the first kind of exemplar superchain container. We are working with another project in collaboration with them to build this, but our team is going to be working on this directly. And this project is meant to benefit the Super ecosystem. We have some interesting things we'll be talking about in terms of making sure that the value benefits super holders, right? So we'll be talking about that and sharing more in the next 2 or 3 weeks coming here soon. But rest assured that this is something that we think is interesting. We're working towards it. It's coming soon. There's complexity here. I mean, we're the first to do this microchain concept. No one's done this before. There are going to be some modifications we have to make to the infrastructure layer as well, right? Nonetheless, this is on the roadmap. We're moving towards it. It's going to be high performing. It's going to be a great user experience, and it's going to benefit our ecosystem greatly. So yeah, I mean, we're starting to already, work with our team and developers. A lot of the smart contract work is already done, and there's a lot more to do, but a lot of it's already done with our partnership with others. And these developers have been working on Protexes for quite some time, but they didn't have the infrastructure layer. These ideas of a microchain or a superchain container, right? And this, what we were trying to do is build the first kind of example, of this microchain concept, prove it out, and then anyone else can build whatever they want. Of course, there would be step-by-step deployment, right? But ultimately, we just want to showcase what's possible. Web 2 experience, centralized exchange experience, Web 3 security, right? With settlement a couple seconds later, right? Not 12 minutes, not 7 days, right? A couple seconds later. So if you wanted to move into a superchain container or microchain, do your activity there, and then move back to layer 1 to do something else on the layer 1 itself, which is also going to be improving in speed. It's very fast. It's going to be even faster, right? You can do it in a matter of seconds. So, by the time you open up your wallet, do your thing, and the wallet closes, you're done. You're back onto super layer 1. That's where we're moving towards. That's what we aspire to do. All right, John, do you want to talk a little bit about the, we have the Citadel, we have Common Fund, and, do you want to jump into this part?
Yeah, sure. So, so many of you in our community might know about Common Fund, a kind of a platform to raise capital. Sorry, there's a bell here. Yeah, so we thought as a team, well, why don't we focus, of course we have different ecosystem projects that want to launch on Common Fund, and we launched Citadel, and we had a lot of our community stake on Citadel. And we thought, well, okay, for our first Common Fund project, we want to make sure that, well, for one, that we're promoting an application that we're going to put our heart and soul into, and why not have it be why not have it be something like Superliquid, where we can actually showcase, like Josh was mentioning, the the super container aspect. So we're pretty excited about having a super liquid launch on Common Fund, and expect it to be in, I don't know if we're going to be saying the specific dates now, but hey, maybe within the next 3 weeks. And we want to make it this exclusive to those that have staked in Citadel. So we want to make sure that Citadel is a platform where people, they can feel like they can feel great for staking there, getting some basic yield, but also be surprised in the fact that, wow, we get access now to kind of participate in something at a discount. So we're going to be talking about that. I don't know if we're going to be talking about that today, but anyone that is staked in Citadel is going to have a significant discount and almost be whitelisted for any project that launches on Common Fund. And so Super Liquid will be the first to go. And we have many other ecosystem projects that are going to be launching maybe on a weekly, let's just say bi-weekly basis. And I think people that stake on Citadel are going to be pretty happy to want to keep their assets there, to stake there, just so they have this ability to participate in the ecosystem. So really excited about Super Liquid launching, and to give real benefits to those that had staked in Citadel early, our early community. So this sale for Super Liquid will be, it's really for the sake of the community, and it's for the sake of building attention and marketing and giving people early access.
That's right. We're not planning to take any VC funding at all. In fact, we think the Hyperliquid team did a fantastic job. There's no doubt about it, right? So why not just follow in their footsteps, right? And in our case, though, we do want to make sure the folks that have staked into the Citadel have priority access through Common Fund for a limited amount of sale. I mean, we're talking about like maybe 1%, right? We'll talk more about what we're planning for Super Liquid in terms of how this benefits everyone else. There are very much socialized kind of intentions here to make sure that Super token holders benefit, right? Because this is a project that is being built by the Super team, ultimately through the Public Goods Foundation, right? So it's being funded by that. But we wanted to expose folks that have contributed to Citadel to have significant discount. I don't want to say a specific number, but it's probably more than 25%, 30% discount. And we'll open it up to, I mean, these are works in progress, so things may shift, but ultimately maybe like 60% of the limited sale is for Citadel folks only. Maybe only like 300,000-400,000, and then maybe only 200,000-400,000 is available for just anyone that wants to participate. But ultimately, the folks that are in the Citadel today will have a significant discount. So, we promise you this, we're going to do it, we deliver it. And that's basically what we do at Supra. So we're just bond, if we say it, we do it. So I tell you what, I think that's the end of the presentation. Also, I guess what I want to just really emphasize that Super Liquid is the first kind of marquee product to showcase the power of Super chain containers. The Super containers concept is still being worked on in the layer 1, but the thing is we wanted to showcase and attract eyeballs, like, wow, like Web 2 experience with Web 3 security. No one's done this before. The re-execution model, the pre-execution re-execution model, no one's done this before. And we think this is going to be a very popular thing. I think this will attract other developers, DeFi protocols, games, whatever it might be, to Supra. This is something that I think is going to be super powerful. Once again, Hyperliquid and Supra were the only ones to vertically integrate and think the way we did. And since we already have most of the infrastructure stack, it only makes sense for us to also get in this game as well. So yeah, and then so anyone that has participated in Citadel in the past, congratulations, you'll be the first to have access to this. You'll be the first to have a major discount. The other folks, there'll be limited space. So because ultimately, the funds we're raising from this is not really, we're resourced enough to build this on our own. But we do want to give early actors and supporters access to what we hope will be a very great deal. Of course, not financial advice, do your own research, etc. But if you've been with us this long, if you've followed our progress, you see that we are fulfilling the full vision, that we implement all these components, right? I mean, remember, Supra itself is a huge project. Layer 1 protocol, Oracle protocol, cross-chain communication protocol, automation protocol, a dynamic function market maker protocol, you know, and proof of efficient liquidity protocol, a single stack on-chain randomness protocol. And there's actually a couple more, like we'll eventually do decentralized storage as well. Full vertical integration is our thesis. We're going to achieve it step by step. It's been described, and it is the biggest infrastructure project in Web3 ever. You know, and we're very ambitious, but also it's not like, oh, we're just aspirational. We want to do this. We have like some of the best protocols in the world and designs, literally getting into top academic venues through double-blinded peer review process, meaning they don't know who the authors are and they accept us. PhDs are scrutinizing us, and academics scrutinizing us. So that's a very good protocol. And we have been getting into the absolute top best academic venues in the world, same ones as Aptos and Sui, right? And we have folks even from Ethereum Foundation, Solana Foundation looking into our protocols in the academic world. It starts there, then it trickles down to the rest. Retail will eventually understand the power of what we're doing, in my point of view, and step by step, we'll get there. So it's a marathon and an ultra marathon. The job's not done. Even after Super Liquid, if there's a product that the community doesn't build, we'll build it and we'll socialize that value to the ecosystem, right? I mean, internally, we have like 5 other DApp ideas that we want to do, whether it's a social network, whether it's some sort of e-commerce platform, or some sort of media, or whatever it might be. There's many things that are possible here that if community doesn't build it, we'll build it, and we'll make sure that there's value capture for supporters of Supra. And we probably will open up the Citadel one more time for a limited period for future sales. So in other projects. So, but it won't be like freely come in and leave anytime you want. You have to come in and showcase that you have been an early supporter. And by being an early supporter, you might get access to like as up to 40% discounts on different things. After Supra, it's going to be other Supra projects that are Super DApp Showdown winners, the winners of our other competition, our Super DApp competition. And as John mentioned, we're going to be trying to launch these every 2 weeks. So if you're in Common Fund, if you're in Citadel, you'll have access to Super Liquid. Thereafter, every 2 weeks, you'll have another opportunity to consider. Most of the projects that we are going to be showcasing on Common Fund are actually fully built out. In fact, Super Liquid is going to be one of the least built out because we have to build an entire infrastructure stack, the microchain, but we have confidence on exactly how to do it. And it'll be challenges, and it'll be very exciting to get there. But once again, I think this is going to be an exemplar project to showcase the power of our ideas, that you can have 10 millisecond block times, that you can have extreme performance in Web3 security. Web2 UX user experience is what we're going for, while still maintaining Web3 security and decentralization. Okay, yeah, that's the presentation. John, should we spend a little time to go through maybe a couple of questions from the community?
Yeah, I think a couple things we should cover is, there was one question about Super Liquid having its own token. So I think we should cover that. We should cover the fact that we have a model, the FTO model. I don't know if we want to talk about that today, but basically we've created a model that brings value from Super Liquid token back to the Supra ecosystem and brings value to the Supra token. So first of all, I just want to say that in most cases, all cases of Supra actually building out applications, we have a single token model, and we don't, we on purpose are very careful about launching separate tokens when it's not necessary. Josh, we went back and forth a lot about this, and we always bring it back. We have this philosophy of the single token model. In this case, let's talk about why we came to the conclusion of actually we have to have a separate token. Let's talk a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, for Cryptex, you need to have a lot of liquidity incentives for market makers to attract professionals and such. And the team, after John and I actually debated against this for a long time, but eventually we got convinced that if we have a single token, it's only Supra, we might have a situation where there's just too much token circulating too soon, right? So as John mentioned, though, we have this fusion token concept. We'll be talking about that in the next few weeks here, which is designed to basically put the value into the Supra token effectively. Like anyone that has Supra tokens, they benefit proportionally to what their holdings are. So this is a way that we can make sure that the value is captured by the ecosystem, that anything we develop is socialized and benefits everyone. So there's, ultimately, if we were to follow these Hyperliquid playbook, which was great, and we're going to enhance it with our own technologies, automation, for example, and such. And our Oracle is like 3 to 5 times faster as well. And also Superchain Containers and Hydrangea is faster as well. So we'll enhance the technology, but their go-to-market strategy, how do they attract people to participate? They had a point system. Those points were generated from on-chain activity, from real contribution to the network, and those translated to an airdrop, right? So we pretty much want to just, hint. We want to basically do the same thing, and we just can't do that with the super token this way. So
and imagine, I'm sure our community doesn't want us to imagine airdropping Supra to people or overly incentivizing traders or market makers to add liquidity to this perp dex. I think a lot of the community would want Supra token to be, not immediately given out with crazy rewards, etc., and to have a lot of supply hit the market. And I think in general, that's why our DeFi team and economists said, hey, this is a bit too risky for if we were just to use the super token, is way too risky to flood the market with super tokens. In this case, it just makes the most sense from a risk perspective to launch Super Liquid with a separate token and different incentives. And so we spent about a month thinking about, well, how do we explain this to our community? Well, we have to come up with some token economic way where the value and the value of the Super Liquid token actually comes back to Supra, and that's the FTO, the fusion token model, and that's when we came up with that.
Yeah, and also Supra as an ecosystem, we try to limit grants. We do investment instead into other dApps. And those investments are going to be into this fusion token concept. Basically, everything's put into a mechanism that benefits Supra token holders. So that's kind of the goal here. We're not here to launch hundreds of tokens. We're here to put all the value into Supra. But if a dApp specific use case needs its own token, how do we do it? And this is we'll be talking about this more very soon here, about the fusion token concept. But ultimately, just want you all to know that we are focused on providing value to existing holders, believers, and we ain't going anywhere. And this is long-term play. Super token is a fixed supply asset also, right? So eventually it should become a very scarce resource. That's our belief. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Are there any additional questions here?
I just wanted to mention especially since we're focused on AutoFi, composability in blockchain is, for me, it's and for many of us and for our ecosystem, it's the holy grail. You want applications to be, in most cases, to be composable and to be able to have what we call 0 block delay, execution. You want to be able to get you want to be able to sense the Oracle data. You want to be able to execute a transaction automation in a single block. And having different ecosystems be composable with each other, they can do more with less latency. So that is really the original container model, and that model is more composable. And I feel like most applications we will try to promote and push for the container model. But for applications like Josh said that need this really high throughput, low latency experience, like a perp dex, like a game, or like a Web2 experience, they're going to have a super chain container. And so we have now innovated two types of containers: the composable one that exists directly on the Supra layer 1, and the super chain container, which it really gives this Web2 experience for applications like a perp dex, like a game, that needs to just execute really quickly and doesn't really need to compose directly or right away with other applications.
Yeah, and by the, just to be clear, because of the way we do this, if you're in a super chain container, microchain, moving back to layer 1 is going to be fast, a couple of seconds perhaps, right? That's what we're aiming for. And so you can't even feel it really. It just means so. But yeah, then there's just no way around it. Hey, if anyone has other suggestions, let us know. But you just can't physically do it. I know this for a fact. So if you want to have 20 millisecond blocks, this is the only way to do it. Now there are a couple questions here. One's another one around how many super chain containers can there be? It depends on the execution capacity of the system, right? So for example, Super Layer 1 can handle, let's say right now, without fully scaling things, 100,000 transactions per second execution, sure. But if a single super chain container starts to have 5,000 transactions per second, Supra has to trail execute it. So that already is 5% of the full capacity, right? So there's it's going to be based off of that, and what's going to have to happen is it's going to have to create a marketplace, an open marketplace for people to basically pay for their execution DappSpace, their execution capacity. They'll have to reserve it and pay for it, and they pay for it in the Supra. I should have mentioned this. Since everything is executed on Super Layer 1, that super chain container has to pay Super Layer 1 Supra fees. So if they generate 5,000 transactions per second, that's great. That is a lot of transactions that are being executed that cost gas, right? That DApp has to pay the Layer 1, right? So there is value capture here as well. But ultimately, I think maybe I don't really foresee more than 50 of these things, and people will have to bid on it basically, and they'll have to kind of reserve their execution capacity. So if this becomes a huge product and you have to pay for this in Super Token, and people are going to bid on it, and it's going to go to the highest bidder, ultimately, they'll have to reserve it and such, then, remember the currency here and the utility token, the gas, the commodity, rather, I didn't mean to say currency, but the gas, the commodity here is Super Token, a limited supply asset. And so, yeah, there will always eventually be some sort of limit, but man, if we ever hit those limits, that means this thing is massive, right? I mean, I'm talking about like bigger than all of Web3 today, right? So by like 10x. So we have a lot of ways to go, and we have a lot of capacity here, but I think it'll be really great. Okay, next question here. Is a DFMM and Superliquid separate projects? Yeah, they're different. So the dynamic function market maker is a cross-chain DEX. Okay, so let me kind of share the rollout plan or why we did things the way we do. Layer 1 smart contract, Oracle, on-chain random is great. The next one is going to be with the rollout of Supernova, Layer 1 to Layer 1 cross-chain communication. Remember, this is also a major innovation. It's bridgeless. There's no bridge, right? It's cryptographically secure communication between validator nodes recomputing consensus, cryptographically secure. So step one, get the cross-chain communication protocol live. So tomorrow is like Project Blastoff 2.0, right? That's the kind of community learner program. Just so you know, that's tomorrow, right? Which we've been working on that for some time. And about 4 or 5 days thereafter is Supernova, Layer 1 to Layer 1 communication with Ethereum. About 3 to 4 weeks. Remember, time of shift. I mean, I love it when they say, "Oh, you're 3.5 weeks and 1 second late." F you, right? It's like, thank you, I appreciate that. But let's be honest, like this is very, very difficult technology, and if the engineers want some more time, we're going to give it to them. We've been working on this stuff for years. They need a couple more days. The answer is yes. Take the couple of days. It's okay, right? Because ultimately, once it's launched, it's launched. So Supernova goes live in, let's call it 4 or 5 days from now as well. 3 to 4 weeks after that, 3 to 4, 5, 6 weeks, very soon, is the Proof of Efficient Liquidity program, the POEL program, the multi-asset liquid staking program, where you can bring your assets like Ether and others to Supra, and you can borrow Supra against it, stake it to node operators, earning the staking yields, and then we issue you an iAsset like an iETH that you can use in Supra DeFi. This iETH that can be used in Supra DeFi can be put into Supra applications. This is how we attract liquidity to Supra in a sustainable manner, not just paying out for unproductive assets just sitting there idle. This is a much more sustainable way to do it. Okay. Now, what does this mean ultimately, though? Well, it means that we have a Supra vault on Ethereum. The next chain might be BNB. The next one, others. We end up having assets from different ecosystems coming to Supra through POEL and Supernova, and then we also have in these vaults, the Supra vault on these respective other Layer 1s and Layer 2s have native assets, the real original assets in those vaults. This sets the foundation for cross-chain DEX. Okay, cross-chain through Supra, native asset to native asset settlement. This is the dynamic function market maker. This is enshrined, built into the Supra infrastructure. Okay, so if you want to go from Ether to like BNB and settle a native coin, we think this is going to be faster than you can ever do from a centralized exchange through Supra Layer 1. So we call this concept and this vision the intra layer. And ultimately what does this mean? It means Supra is the brain, especially when you have automation in the cross-chain setting. Supra is the brain, has access to Oracle data as signals, and it can automate things across multiple chains. We think that Supra becomes the headquarter for you to manage your digital asset in a multi-chain environment, right? So the dynamic function market makers, the cross-chain DEX. On the Supra Layer 1, you use Supra token for that. It's enshrined, built into the Supra Layer stack. Layer 1 smart contract, multi-VM, EVM's coming soon too. So Move VM, EVM's coming soon. Oracle, cross-chain communication automation, on-chain randomness, dynamic function market maker. So step 1, get the bridge. Step 2, have a protocol to attract liquidity sustainably. Step 3, that bootstraps the liquidity, not only for dApps on Supra, but also the actual native assets on our vaults on other chains. Now, when you have assets on other chains, and you have Supra as a brain, now you can do a cross-chain DEX. This vision is what we call the intra layer, a middleware network. It's basically the brain of Web3. That's what we aspire to do. Now, the question was DFMM for Super Chain containers? Are they different products or Super Liquid? They are different products. DFMM is all Supra, is enshrined into the infrastructure itself. Microchain is kind of a microchain mirrored asset type of situation where that may have its own token, but remember, they have to pay the Supra Layer 1 to execute. So if they get it to a point where that single application is consuming 5,000 transactions per second, that's paying Supra gas for all that execution, and it will add up. And if you have 20 of these, 50 of these eventually, and there's a limited amount of Supra token out there because it's a fixed supply asset, I think you understand where that's going, right? Moreover, since any products that we invest in as an organization foundation, we're socializing that value through the Fusion token model, and anything that we also build, including the Super Liquid, that is going to be designed to make sure that through the Fusion token model that it benefits Supra holders. So yeah, that's it. The dynamic function market maker will not have a token. It's all Supra based. Yeah. So that's
in 99% of the use cases, or in 99, maybe 95% of the situations where we have a product like built by Supra on Supra, it's just going to use the Supra token. It's just Supra Liquid is one of those cases where you have to incentivize liquidity, and we don't want to do that with a Supra token because it's super risky, and that's why we came up with the Fusion token model to kind of bring value back to Supra. And I think there are questions about the Fusion token model, and I think we would probably go on, and we should probably have a separate, maybe even a separate like 30 minutes to really go into what is the Fusion model and how does it really bring value back to Supra token, because we're going to do it.
Right.
We're going to do it not just for Supra Liquid, but for many other ecosystem projects. We're going to give them the opportunity to do this Fusion token model.
Yeah, it's going to take some education. We'll basically do probably a whole video on that, explain it, and maybe a follow-up webinar. We're going to make an explainer video, but ultimately, just so everyone knows, this is the intention. Yeah, I think we're out of time. Is there, John, you want to have the last word here?
I'm just as bullish as I was 8 months ago about Supra Containers. Now we have 2 different models and 2 different types of containers. We will always, and I think I will always kind of, in many cases, prefer the regular container model that is composable, because I feel like AutoFi, and to be able to use AutoFi to the max, having more composability is usually better. But it's also exciting to see that we can see what Hyperliquid has done, and the fact that their kind of architecture is similar to ours in many ways, but the fact that we can actually create these Supra chain containers to have the same kind of latency and speed while I'll also be able to give out these and have the similar incentive models, I think, I think is as bullish as well. So two different container models, and really thanks to our research team for really working around the clock to push these out.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that I do also think that bigger opportunity is the super layer 1 containers ultimately. But for these niche use cases that you just need to have this Web2 experience, this is the only way to do it. So that's what we're all about. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I think this might be the last of the masterclass, revenue models and such. We'll be shipping this step by step. We'll get in there. As you can tell, we've been pushing for a lot and bringing things to market a lot. And of course, coming tomorrow's PVO 2.0, the Learn and Earn program. 5 days later, Supernova. 3-4 weeks thereafter, plus or minus, is proof of efficient liquidity protocol. Assets starts to come in. Super DeFi starts to really kick into gear. Super liquid launches. Boom, nonstop. There'll be more.
Citadel stakers, common fund, super liquid. Boom.
All right, thanks everyone. Peace out.
Thanks everyone.
They talk decentralization, but we build it to the core. We got DVR, they ain't seen this shit before. Running laps round them, yeah.